All right, go ahead.
What's up? This is your boy Styles here with WestCoastStyles.com. And man, we got a special guest announced. We got a legend, a fucking legend in the house tonight. We've got Big Hutch from Above the Law in the house. And this is myself, Styles, with my co-host Shad Reed. And man, we're just going to go ahead and get into it. And let's talk to the legend. Hutch, how are you, bro?
I'm good. I'm blessed, brother. I can't complain. If I did, nobody be listening. They got their own problems. So I'm blessed, brother. 10 toes down. You know,
it's all good, man. It's such a pleasure to have you on. Man, I've been a fan for a long, long time. And I remember when I first heard you guys. I believe it was back in 1990. The first single I heard from you was "Untouchable,"
yeah,
and that's still one of my favorites to this day. And I love how you guys took the Jackie Wilson remake of "Light My Fire."
Yeah,
you covered the Doors, and you guys took that riff to make that song. That whole beat.
Right.
And I remember
live too. That loop is Jackie Wilson live. That's his live album.
That was Mm-hmm. And I remember I had the cassette, and you guys had a remix on there with this killer bass line.
Yeah.
And these drums that was hard as hell, man.
That's the bass line from Parliament, Mr. Wiggles.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to just jump off in that song. Can you tell us about the making of Untouchable, please?
Well, Untouchables, I actually had gotten the crates about, I did the beat in like late 88, early 89. It was on the original Above the Law demo. And all me and Dre ended up doing was recutting everything I did at the 8-track in a 16, and we bumped it up to 24. I just brought my crates in, re-looped everything, and then we ran everything through the 2-inch because we were on 1/2-inch at the time. So we bumped everything up. And I was just digging through the crates, man. And back then, what I wanted to do as a producer, which was different, is I didn't want to like use a lot of the ultimate breaks. I wanted to really use like classic soul, little early 70s, late 60s kind of vibe. That's why it's a lot of Isaac Hayes and stuff like that, and a bunch of Quincy. I looped a bunch of Quincy stuff on there, and then you got the Jackie Wilson live, Light My Fire. That's just how I came up with it. I wanted to do something different. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to just do. I didn't want to kind of just do the regular, like that feel back then in the late 80s and the 90s as we were starting to develop Above the Law. I wanted to just have I wanted to dig into a different aspect of the crates. Basically.
Yeah. And okay, you said you were digging in the crates. Did you know that was the one when you came across that song?
Oh yeah. I knew that groove was the groove. I mean, the bass line itself is just killing it. You know, just the bass line alone, and then the crazy organ piano that's on top of it, the driving that I was like, man, that's gonna be right. You know what I mean? And it's not even slowed down that much. It's kind of like right on how the original, it's in its original key almost. So I knew it would be that. I knew it would be a dope loop. I mean, I knew it was a dope loop. So, oh yeah. The loop was everything then. That the loop was everything. And the drums, and the drums was like the heartbeat of it. So, the loop, if you don't have, the loop kind of gave you the essence of the drum beat back then.
What about the writing of the song? You guys came up, obviously Untouchable. Man, I love that opening line. Like, first, let me explain that I'm a hustler. Here's an example of what a hustler do. Tell me about the writing of that song.
Well, me and KMG wrote it. KMG, rest in peace, man. I always do that before I start the show.
Rest in peace, yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? Shout out to DJ Chaos and Gomac, and Cocaine too. So, how we do it. And Laylaw too. So when we actually started writing Untouchables, which we wrote Untouchables maybe about a year before we got signed, because we wrote Murder Rap and Untouchables at around the same time. And we was hustling at the time. We was in a trap, or as they say now, the trap, or we was in a crack house, but you know what I'm saying? Late 80s, and we doing our thing. And I think what me and him always wanted to do, we wanted to do something that was street and still conscious. You know what I'm saying? at the same time, but not, we don't want you to go to school. We just want you to vibe with us, you know, because we were street kids. So that's just the way we developed that idea of Untouchables, just talking about what our lifestyle was like every day. You know, that's why I say in this lifestyle, you got two things, bad and good. It ain't nothing in between. What we was on the dark side. We was on the bad side. So we felt like you either doing good or you doing bad. Ain't no in between. You know, now everybody got a gray area. But back then in the 80s, you was either on that side, either you was balling on the football, basketball, baseball field, or you was balling in the crack house. You know what I'm saying? To us, and that's why I said that it's bad and good. It ain't nothing in between. You know, and so is life. You know, either you doing bad to people or you doing good. You know what I mean? So yeah. So that's how we came up with it. And in Cam G, his was always the illustrated perspective of things. You know, like I would be kind of like off the hook, and then he would be like kind of like the stabilizer. You know what I'm saying? To everything.
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole thing that I loved about, you know, the group was you were high and he was low. You know what I'm saying? You were loud and he was calm and smooth, and you know, he brought that smoothness along.
Well, he was a smooth criminal killer. You know what I mean? And I was the dude that kick in the door waving the fofo, basically.
No doubt. And you know, you mentioned the remix. We were talking about that with that killer bass line and that drum line, that those hard drums.
Yeah.
You put that together also?
Yeah. All the stuff on Look Like Hustlers is me and Dre.
Okay.
Everything on there is me and Dre. Like Dre, I did the original demo. I did the original like 7-song demo. And then me and Dre recut everything that I did. And then we added the last song. We added Just Kicking Lyrics and Freedom of Speech. Everything else I had already cut. We just recut it, you know.
Well, you know, that's pretty damn impressive considering that's pretty much your debut. And you had already mastered the instruments, it seems like, you know, the looping and the sampling and, you know, how'd you learn all that? Like, you know.
Well, you know, I grew up as a musician first. You know, I played 3 different instruments. I played bass guitar, I played trumpet, and I played piano. And in the 80s, you know, because my dad, he was a writer and composer on Motown. My uncle's Willy Hutch. You know, my other uncle is Jerry Long, which is Cocaine's dad. So we from a musical family. So I studied music all my life, but when hip hop took off, it was kind of crazy. And as a late teenager, I started being in the streets heavy, you know. So I kind of got away from the actual playing and got more into hip hop. So then I started learning about looping, and that's why if you listen to a lot of Above the Law records, it's melody. It's a melody to it all because that's my musicianship. When I'm looping, I'm always looking for that melody, you know. So yeah, that's how it kind of came, you know, that's how it all came together. And when we were coming up, since I studied music all my life, I was appointed in my clique as the music person. So I learned everything at the little backyard boogie studios, in the big studios, when because we paid a lot of money to actually get our demo done the right way. So I had to be the point man. So by the time I got the Ruthless, I had kind of knew everything. The difference, what I didn't know is how to professionally make records, and Dre taught me that. You know, I was still in the demo phase of the writing and everything, and he taught me how to lay it all out, put everything in perspective, all the frequencies, how to EQ, you know, and all that stuff.
How were you introduced to the drum machine?
I started in high school. I started messing with drum machines.
Okay.
I used to mess with the first the 808, of course. Then the 909 I learned, which I like the 909 really a lot. Then I learned the Oberheim. It was an Oberheim drum that was out in the 80s that I learned. And then when looping came, I learned the SP, you know, the SP12. And then, because I was doing like just messing with drums. I was doing that in high school. I was messing with drums, a little Sonic. Remember little 3-4 pads in Sonic drum? I had one of those. So I had been learning like drum machines all the way through it. You know what I mean? Like all the way up until I actually started working with Dre really heavy. And then when I started working with him, he taught me the MPC. I mean, I learned the MPC on my own because he didn't want to learn it. And then I showed him how to use it. And then because he had taught me how to master the SP12. So yeah.
Mhm.
So then because he was always wanted to use the SP12. And he was like, well, I got that MPC. If you want to learn it, take it home and learn it. So I learned it. I mastered. I did all of Vocally Pimping and all of Black Mafia Life on the MPC. So yeah, I didn't do any of that on the SP. You know, I did some early. We did all of Living Like Hustlers on the SP. You know, and then we did some of Cocaine's first record, which was Who Am I? I did on the SP. Then when I learned the MPC, I got the MPC 60. Then I got the 2, and then everything else you heard that I do on Above the Law was on the MPC.
Wow, there was so many memorable cuts on that first album. You know, you got Murder Rap where you sampled Quincy Jones on that one. You know, the theme, Ironside theme. But one song that I really love is Another Execution. You kind of slowed it up on that one. What sample?
Lynn Collins.
That was Lynn Collins? Okay.
Yep.
Nice. You also have BTS Express on there.
That's right.
I'm sorry,
BT Express. Minister Society, BT Express. Yeah.
Lots of good stuff there.
Yeah, you got Isaac Hayes on there. We did Hypersonic Superflexic SP, whatever that song is called by Isaac Hayes. We did that.
Oh, Hyperbolic Symbolistic Espadilla Mystic. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that's kicking lyrics. You also got, Why Have I Lost You by Cameo, which is balling. Freedom of Speech is another, I want to say Freedom of Speech is another Lynn Collins record. It's either Lynn Collins, I know it's produced by James Brown.
Probably the JBs, I think.
I think that's the JBs, you're right. That may be the JBs, yeah. And then you got Love Unlimited, which is produced by Barry White, which is Flow On. And then you got Hickey Brewer, that's produced by Quincy Jones, which is Living Like Hustle, the title track. So it's some stuff. It's some stuff. And the only thing that we did from the ground up, me and Dre did, was the last song. Yeah.
Oh, really?
And the last song was totally original. Yeah.
Nice.
What prompted you guys to make that song with all that other stuff already done? Was it just kind of spur of the moment, or did you need one more track to?
Well, no, at Ruthless, we always done a finale song. So, it was grand finale. It was,
grand finale.
Discretion, it was, we always did a finale record. So that was our finale record. So everybody had to do a finale record, which was dope at Ruthless because, that's what, that was like the prize. You know what I mean? You made it when you got the finale record. The album is actually coming out.
One thing I always wanted to ask you guys is, I when you guys first came out, I thought you guys were from South Central. Later, I learned you were from Pomona. Was the idea to present you guys as South Central?
No, it's both. We were discovered by Laidlaw and our good friend that used to hustle with us. My man Dooley, rest in peace. He introduced us to GOMAC, which we used to, when we hustled in the streets, we either was hustling in LA or Pomona. So when we came out, half of our group, our clique is from Pomona, half of them is from LA. So so that's how we had the South. So we consider our sound being the South Central sound, basically, but we from Pomona. Like the core of the group is from Pomona,
Nice. Chad, you wanted to
doing like little skits. We were doing little skits on the thing, like when we were saying like get your lokes at the local store at South Central and all that. That was just like for like like if you seen a general commercial somewhere on TV, it wasn't to coin us and say, oh, we from Pomona, because on the record, I say I'm from Pomona, so I got the latest shit on you. I say it on Kicking Lyrics, so I never say. We say we boss players from the streets of South Central because we rolling through the streets of South Central. It wasn't like nothing true. You know what I mean? It just, it's just like when you see Cube and he's talking about straight out of Compton, he's really from South Central. But all of us considered when you moving around out there and you clicked up with people, you consider being from there. So,
Understood. Chad, you had some questions you want to throw in?
Yeah. Going back to kind of your musicianship Would you credit your kind of traditional education in music as what gave you the ability to create G-Funk?
Yeah, absolutely. Because G-Funk is a fusion of a lot of different music. You know what I mean? It's a fusion of funk, R&B, jazz, rhythm and blues, and those are all in rock and roll. So those are things that I study. You know what I mean? It's the grunginess of rock. It's the smooth of jazz. You know, it's the melody of R&B. It's the deep, dark, soulful, groovy vibe. You know, gumbo feeling of the blues. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely that influenced me, because if you listen to Living Like Hustlers is more of a boom in the back album versus Black Mafia Life is a straight G-Funk record. It's smooth, it's singing, it's fly, you know, it's groovy, it's all of that. So yeah, and a lot of it's fused with a lot of different music. Versus the first album but it more was sampling. It was more sampling in the drums. You know what I mean? Versus Black Mafia Life was more me on the boards, me bringing strings in, horns, singing, me, Cam G, and Cocaine doing a lot of the singing and bringing in the female singers and stuff like that. And where we starting to create more melody and harmony, a whole vibe with gangster rap, you know.
Yeah, it was definitely slowed down a little bit too. I really like that. And again, not just only merely in contrast, because I think this other group of producers are amazing too, but in contrast to say someone like some group like the Bomb Squad, where their sound is a little more almost like a collage of sound. Whereas yours definitely had a little more of a melodic component to it that I think, you know, again, gave it that different edge and made it something very different, you know, at the time.
And it's very, you know, it's funny you hit on those things, because, you know, what a lot of people don't know about me is that I am a musician first, you know, and I really wanted to be a producer, you know, my whole life. So I just happened to get into rap, and then I had a voice. So everybody was like, use your voice. You know what I mean? So, because I grew up studying all kinds of music because I wanted to be a producer, you know. And I never really wanted to be the artist, even though I had the knack to be the artist. That wasn't what I strongly wanted to do. So I always try to use my musicianship and my approach as an actual trained musician and integrate that into the hip hop culture.
Yeah, well, I can say I really think that you do a great job in that, and it definitely shows in the work.
Thank you.
Of course. You mentioned Dr. Dre earlier. How did you jump forward quite a few years, and we'll go back too? How did you reconnect with them for Loose Cannons?
Oh, well, what happened was, you know, we were shooting Straight Outta Compton, and he didn't know whether he wanted to do an album or not, a music piece for it, you know. I guess he got inspired once, you know, the movie got, you know, started getting deep into the movie, and it, you know, sparked it up, right? So with us reuniting, because of the film, he called me in and was like, played a bunch of records for me and was like, you know, just give my take on it. I was like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever, you know what I mean? So then then I stayed me and him stayed in the studio for about 6 days straight. And then he said, man, let's do something. You know what I mean? Let's just do something. And it was like 3-4 o'clock in the morning. And we started listening to some samples, came up with a couple of loops, you know, laid the track down, and then we took off from there. And then we called Exhibit in, you know, later on after me and Dre had the ideal already laid out and everything, and kept magic going. And that's just how it came together. It's always organic with us. You know, one thing about when we do stuff, like the era that we came from, it's an organic thing. It's never contrived. It's never like, you know, it's like, hey, if you're around, let's try something, you know, and it happened to be golden.
Yeah, that's an outstanding. That's one of my favorite cuts on that album.
Oh, well, thank you, man. I'll take
it. When I heard it, and then when that beat changes.
Yeah, that was ill, man.
In Jerry Heller's 2007 memoir, he wrote, "Above the Law would have been NWA if NWA never existed." Do you agree with that?
Well, I guess because what Jerry is kind of trying to say is at the time that we came out, we mirrored each other. you know what I'm saying, to a sense to where we would have been them if they wouldn't have been them, basically. You know what I mean? Because it's like a mirror. It's like we were like the mirror to them. You know, when it came to, I guess, a deep, dark, hardcore sound, if you don't have them, if we would come along, we would have felt that void. I believe that's what he's saying. I mean, but the brilliance of Eazy-E was to have two super groups on his label. That was the brilliance of it. I think that if he was still living, you would have Above the Law and NWA being like, you know, crazy, super, like I guess you would say like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones of hip hop. Wow. You know what I mean? So because Eazy was a
put Bone Thugs in there too. That would be like the.
Well, yeah, then that would be the trifecta. They would be like the Grateful Dead or something. It would be ridiculous. You know what I mean? It'd be because at the time when he brought us up, when they brought us to the table, we actually were looked at like NWA. You know, as far as, you know, the level of what we were doing at once we had arrived. You know what I mean? And then NWA broke up. So we kind of took a hit because all of the backlash came to Ruthless because of the breakup. You know, it really didn't round back up until we actually started the new roster, which was Above the Law, Cocaine, Bone Thugs and Harmony, like you're saying. Then it revamped, you know what I mean? Before that little period of time, it kind of got a little crazy. But I think if NWA would have stayed together in Eazy-E's vision, it would have been really, really crazy. And then coming up to a Bone being developed and all of that, it would have been even crazier. So
how did you first meet Eazy?
I met Eazy through Laylaw. Laylaw introduced us because he heard my boy Gomac got the demo to him when they were on the Straight Outta Compton tour. And I never had met Eazy. You know, I only knew Law and Ice Cube at the time. I used to see him in passing, but I never met him, like, you know, vibe with him, right? So once he heard the demo, he called us and was like, hey man, I want y'all to come out here and, you know, and leave that other shit alone y'all doing out there on the streets. You know what I mean? Y'all gonna be locked up before I get a chance to sign y'all. So I said, well, okay, well, you know, we'll come out. So we came out on, I believe it was either the Eazy Does It tour or the Straight Outta Compton tour at the time. And we came out on that tour and he just, you know, then that's when I met him. I met him out on tour. Yeah. And you know, Eazy-E's the best. Hey man, Eazy-E's the greatest thing to me, like Muhammad Ali, man. That's the most incredible dude I ever was in his presence. I mean, like the most humble giant you ever want to meet.
Humble giant, that's cool. Do you have any fun stories or memories of just, you know, kicking it with them or work? I know you recorded, you produced some of his tracks too.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, the funniest thing that I could say about Eazy was a clown in the sense to where, okay, like say we cutting a record, right? He will tell you that he's not a rapper. He's not this, he's not that. You know, he's an idea. And when he cutting music, I'm like, okay, this is the 300 take. You know what I mean? Yeah, sure, you're not a rapper. You know what I'm saying? But when it's finished, it was magic. You know what I mean? So we would always clown like that. You know, he used to always say, well, you the rapper. I'm not the rapper. I'm just a good idea. You know
Wow.
Yeah, he never. One thing about Eric, I think I call him a humble giant because one thing about him being as large as he was, he respected people who actually were skilled. He didn't never, you know, no matter how large he got, he would always be like, well, you the expert at this. You the expert at that. Leave me. He knew like, okay, I'm only great as the team that I have. You know, he knew that. I'm only great as the people that I have around me, you know, and he was so humble with that. He never was a person that's like, oh, I'm the shit. I don't need none of you motherfuckers. He wasn't a dude like that. You know, now if you didn't choose to fuck with Eric was cool. He was like, deuces, I'm not gonna hold you up. You know, so me and him had a great relationship when it came to that, and we were kind of alike when it comes to that because we felt like, hey, you know, you need who you need if they want to be needed. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, it's incredible to have known a person like Eazy-E. If you never met him, you couldn't fathom what I'm saying, dog. Like how his mind was. Like when he told me the idea of Bone Thugs and Harmony, I was like, yeah, it sound good, but you know, it had never been done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I was like, whoa. And then when he played the stuff, and I was like, okay, because at that time, I was his liaison. I was the person to say what's hot and what's not, basically, at the time, you know? And when I heard, I was like, yeah, that's sharp, man. That's, you know what I mean? That might go. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't know. I mean, we all come from a real humble perspective. We didn't really, you know, I tell people this all the time. People always say legend this, great that. Well, if you were roll the tape back, I would tell you this. We just believed in what we were doing. We weren't experts, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So if we heard something that we thought and it felt like it's something of value, we just took the risk on it from the heart, you know. So and that's what I can say about him. He always believed in something that was different. He always believed in something that was rare, fresh, and new. You know, just like when he heard our stuff, he's like, okay, it's new, man. Let's take a swing at it.
Yeah. Well, hey, he's a dude that did a song called "Merry Motherfucking Christmas." So
there you go. Yeah, that was a great
says
album.
It all right there.
Great album, man.
Speaking of another very charismatic artist who unfortunately is no longer with us, what do you remember most about recording "Call It What You Want" or "Call It What You Want" with Pac?
Well, you know, story of "Call It What You Want" is he wasn't supposed to be on that record.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Shock G didn't show up for the session, and we had already booked the session, and I already had the record. I had the record for about a week, you know, on the tape, just rolling, waiting for Digital Underground to get off tour. Well, when they got off tour, Money B shows up, and he shows up with this young kid who was on the record same song with him. We didn't even really, Pac hadn't done anything yet. Pac wasn't even Pac yet. See, that's the thing about people talking about "Call It What You Want" and Tupac. Pac hadn't even became Pac yet. He was just a guy with a dope verse on the same song. So, Shock didn't show up, and it was me, Mun, KMG, and Pac in the studio. And it was like, well, shoot, we want to do it with 4 people. Let's just, you know, let's give Pac a shot. You know, he started to warm up. He started to get hot. I mean, he definitely got the potential. And so we took off from there. We took it straight off from there. It was like, you know, like I told you when we at the studio, it's like, hey man, let's just take a swing at it, you know. And there you have it. One of the greatest songs we ever did. And Pac was our partner. So Pac always hung out with us and ran around with us, but he wasn't Pac yet. This before Brenda had a baby, Brenda got a baby. This before all of that shit. This is before. Wow. This is right off of when we done Call It What You Want is when they were off of that movie soundtrack that they did with Same Song. When he was on Same Song, it's right off of that. So he wasn't even known yet. He was just a guy that was in their clique that was rapping.
Were you pleased with and props to you for the work you did on his posthumous album Until the End of Time? What was it like working on that and working with those vocals? How did all that come together?
Well, it was dope because at the time, it was 2 things. At the time, no one really wanted to touch anything, you know, just because of the politics. And I was the vice president of Death Row at the time. So it was easy for me to come in, but I got the blessings from his god brother Edie, and his mom to do the record. You know what I mean? Like, cause they didn't really want anyone else involved with Interscope, but you know, they didn't want the friction with Death Row. But when his mom found out I was over there and me and Pac were friends, she was like, well, if Hutch is there, I know he's going to protect the legacy. So, but the crazy part about doing the record, I tell you, I had a bunch of meetings, right? I listened to about maybe a couple hundred songs, me and the whole staff of my producers, right? And listen to the whole album. And all of his albums, basically, like everything that was unreleased, right? And we had to narrow down within that month, we had to narrow down to 25 songs. And then within 10 days, I had to mix the whole album.
Wow.
Yeah, because they had already scheduled it. It was already slated to come out and everything. But the incredible thing about it was the people that I work with, like with his mom, his uncle, Henry, all those people that I work with, they were so on point that we didn't miss a beat. You know, If I needed records, they bring them in. If I would have a list, boom, that it was like a, you know, well-oiled machine, bro. You know what I mean? It was incredible, man. And to hear all those stuff. And then when people come up to me and tell me that record is the best record that they've heard after his death. Like say Until the End of Time is the best because I really took my time, but they don't realize I only had like a month and I had like 10 days to make it feel like that to y'all.
Wow. That's crazy. Let's go back a little bit. I'm going to talk about some of my favorite songs as well. VSOP.
Okay.
Love that song. Please tell me about the making of it, please.
Okay, VSOP, that record wasn't even going to be on our album, you know, and that's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Because I was producing it for somebody else. I was producing it for another group at the time. And me and my partner, HB, it was for his group, him and his brother, rest in peace, Big Dre, him and his brother. And we was at the studio and we was developing the beat and everything, right? And so once I heard the basic idea of the beat, then I took it to another level. And then when KMG came in and heard it, he was like, hey man, see if, you know, because they were developing. They wouldn't like see if HB wanna, you know, wanna collaborate with us on our album and put it on our album. Well, they didn't have a problem with it. They say, cool, okay, make the paper right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There you have it. So when I took it actually into the studio, that's when it became what it is, you know, when me and KMG got on it, you know, because it was just an idea
on that one, right?
Just an idea I had for another group that I produced. It's funny. That's the strange thing about it. And then when people hear, they're like, okay, man, can we do something with that? Like, yeah. So, you know, and big ups to HB, you know what I'm saying, for actually, you know, because it's a great record, you know what I'm saying, for giving us the opportunity to actually even get on the record, you know. So.
You used Hall & Oates on that, didn't you, as on a part of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's Hall & Oates, it's Cutie Pie, it's yes, Hall & Oates and Cutie Pie. Oh, wow. And it's Genius of Love backwards.
A little
Genius of Love backwards, yeah.
Okay, okay. Wow.
That is going backwards. Yeah, it's Genius of Love going backwards. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's the guitars, but they're going backwards. You know, I sampled them backwards because when they had it, they just had the basic drums, and that's all they had to it. Then I added the Cutie Pie and then and that part to it, and then it took off. So, yeah.
Wow, that's dope. Black Superman.
Yeah.
That beat is like to this day, you know, one of the most killer things I've ever heard in my life. You know, why don't you tell me about the making of that song, please?
Black Superman. You know, the crazy thing about Black production wise is, you know, I'm into doing backwards stuff, right? You know, and I pay up now, so it don't matter. You know, Black Superman's Funky Worm backwards.
No shit.
That's Funky Worm backwards. It's the piano. It's the synthesizer solo backwards.
Yeah. I know which part you're talking about. Yeah, right.
Going backwards. And I looped it, and I just kept looping it, and then I went through the breaks, and then we dropped the break on it, and then we didn't really know what we wanted to do with it, for as you know, because I had the break, the thing going backwards, the strings, all that in it, right? But I didn't know what I wanted to put on top of it. At that time, it was like we had really never did a record like that I could fuse funk with. So I was like, okay, how can I fuse some funk shit with it? Because it had that boom, crap, a boom, boom, crap, boom, boom. So I was like, it was like a vocoder, like some Roger shit on top of a hard ass break beat. It never had been done, basically. You know what I mean? So me and my boy Jimmy Russell came in, and then we wrote the vocoder part to it. He wrote the over the top part, and I wrote all the harmonies in there. And then we stripped it, and half of it is the tube, and the other half of it is a vocoder. You know, and I tell you something crazy, bro. We done that record when we were on tour, but every time we come home, we would work on Uncle Sam's Curse. So that was the last record we done, and I remember the group flew out, and at the time we had the vocals, we had everything on it, right? But we hadn't cut the vocoder. So me and Jimmy, we stayed back and we cut the vocoder part and we came out on tour and we played that shit. Motherfuckers went crazy with the vocoder on top of it. That took that record over the top, you know, and that's the last record that we cut on Black Mafia. I mean, on Uncle Sam's Curse. That's the last record we cut.
Was the song was the concept song already written, or were you just making the? Okay,
yeah,
so the
idea was already written. Yeah, we already had the vocals down. I just hadn't added that little vocoder piece.
Got it.
Because we really didn't know where we wanted to go with the hook, you know. And then we came with Anybody Know Black Superman.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Then all that shit, you know what I'm saying? Me and Jimmy wrote all that shit out and laid it out and then just started dumping it down in the vocoder, you know.
Wow. That's hard. California.
Okay.
Love that song too.
Gigolos Get Lonely too. Yeah.
Please tell me about that song.
You know, I love the time. So I wanted to do something. And you know, Uncle Sam's Curse album is such a hard album. It's a gangster political album. So I was like, we gotta have a fun song, something that the honeys like, you know what I mean? Something that the riders can ride to, you know what I mean? And still they can get, you know, they can get the vibe, you know, because there's a lot of political songs on there too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it was the only record that we wanted to do that was like a fun record. You know, like if you look at VSOP, it was a very fun record. But you know, Black Mafia Life is a really live, funky record. You know, Uncle Sam's Curse is a more dark, funky, it's got a deep message to it. So we needed that one record that you just had fun and kind of like exhale. So that's how we came up with it. The cool part about what I used to like to do back then, you know, at the time when I started really getting into the G-Funk really heavy, I wanted to take like a loop and then flip the half of the song. And y'all noticed me from doing it with VSOP, where I flipped the second verse. So the same thing with California, I was like, okay, I'm gonna flip the second verse to some dope ass G-Funk groove.
Yeah.
Great. So I that was kind of like my signature there. I was like, okay, the first half of it is gonna be like us rapping to a loop, and the second half is gonna be us rapping to like a G-Funk, dark ass, like a ill synths and all that kind of stuff. Just like how on if you listen to VSOP, how I flip, ba-boom, boom, clap, ba-boom, boom, clap, and it breaks down to like a hard ass, funky, you know what I mean, melodic groove of its own. Like it's a whole different record, you know.
Yeah, that part where you break it down on California, man, that groove that you start kicking it to is a hard ass beat. Man, but yeah, just the Valley on that song, man. I heard that part. I was like, oh shit.
Nah.
Valley, man. I'm a Valley cat.
I think you asked me that before. I think you asked me that before, but I'm saying the Valley for us, like I'm not talking about the Valley part. I'm talking about like, if you're talking about like the square, like a Valley girl, like, hey, I'm not talking about like Pacoima and so like the hard shit in the Valley. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like Wesley.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you're right about that.
Casino and shit, you know what I mean? Where it's like,
that's good. Dad, I'm trying to think of
you know, like Sherman Oaks and shit. Like, you know.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. Shad, I'm sorry, bro. Go ahead and get your questions, bro.
You're eyes and shit like.
Whose idea was it to sample the Against the Wall movie on Uncle Sam's Curse? That was such a cool movie that not enough people saw.
Me and DJ Chaos watched that movie as we was cutting the record.
Oh, wow.
So at first, we were just going to use a couple of things off of it. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, man, what if we just make it be the theme of the whole record? You know what I mean? And just strategically place the stuff through it to tell the story. You know, so me and him looked at it like, okay, let's use this part, let's use that part. And it's funny because that ended up being how we end up integrating the Mississippi Burning clip, the White Shadow clip. We would try to find all of these ghetto or these racist clips. Mm-hmm. And so Against the Wall made us actually develop that, you know, because we wanted that to be the theme of the album, but we didn't want to wear out the movie. So So we strategically placed it, but it actually ended up telling the whole story of the album.
That's really cool. I'm kind of a movie nerd. And so when I first heard that album and like again, not just a little independent HBO movie. And so when I put those dots together, connected those dots, I was like, wow, that's so awesome that they went and found that.
Yeah, that's the mind of DJ Chaos. Like he was like, oh man, look at, because he's like you. He like to look at a lot of movies, and he would come up with a lot of the ideals, like when it come to like the little the pièce de resistance and stuff. You know, let's try this, sprinkle this in. You know, like a true DJ. So you know, they listen to a lot of stuff. You know what I mean, and look at a lot of shit. So yeah, big up.
How'd you come up with the cover art for that album?
Oh, Kurt Nagahari came in and shout out to Kurt, came in and he just sketched the idea that me, KMG, and DJ Chaos had in our head. We had an idea that because the album, you know, Uncle Sam's Curse is actually was going to be called A Ghetto, but since we are above the law, we don't never do nothing politically correct or straight up. We do something that's going to make you think. So we like, well, what is the ghetto? And then we came with Uncle Sam's Curse. So when we got with the illustrator, we was like, okay, what is Uncle Sam's Curse? And he was like, the ghetto. He said, okay, well, what if we make it to where the suburbs is nice and the ghetto is roped off like a penitentiary, you know? And then he sketched all that out. You know, he put the watch and he the one who added the watchtower. That's like, we just wanted the Uncle Sam's coming over the cloud, coming through with the cloud and just only hovering over the ghetto. So yeah, that's a collective thing that we came and we was just coming up with ideas and that we wanted, when you see the cover, we wanted you to like, when you hear the album, you're like, oh yeah, this is some shit, you know?
Suge Knight is often described as a very intimidating figure in the music business, but he was also very successful. What were some of the positive attributes, some of his positive attributes, and how did he get you to come to Death Row in the late 90s?
Well, the best thing about Suge was that Suge, in the beginning, was the one who kind of exposed everything. You know, not that anybody was stealing, he just showed everybody that, you know, it's got to be fair. We're making money. It's got to be fair. You know what I mean? Because Jerry never, I mean, Ruthless never stole anything. We were young and it wasn't fair. The contracts weren't fair. So he was kind of like, I guess him coming from the sports world, he was like, man, any contract can be renegotiated. Anybody can, you know what I mean? I guess coming from being an athlete, you know, and he was right, you know, because we restructured our deal a couple of times based upon what Suge taught us, you know what I'm saying? Basically about, you know, like, hey, you know, it motivated us to do. So back then he was that. And then he was able to be a person that if something was wrong, Suge would really stand on what was wrong. If someone was doing you wrong, Suge would really stand on that, you know? I think he doesn't get a bad rep for the things he done in the industry. I think it's for the outside of the industry stuff, you know, because he really helped a lot of people. Casey and JoJo, Mary J. Blige, you know, he helped us. He helped Cocaine. He helped the DOC. You know, he gave Dre another opportunity to work with, you know, now is still to this day working with Jimmy. So, you know, that's because of what he believed in, seeing in Dre when, you know, Dre basically wanted to go do his own thing and Suge backed this play. You know what I mean? So yeah, back then, I think that's what people don't give Suge the credit for. You know, how he stood up for what was right at the time. And when a lot of Black executives didn't, to be honest, you know, it's disheartening to see how everything went left because you see a good person that really cares about something, but you see that the streets or a previous life or association gets the best of them. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, and I started, you know, since, you know, I've been knowing Suge since 1989, you know. So when he went down, he just asked me to have his back at the label. And at the time I was trying to come up as a young executive. And I was like, sure, if I can run the label, yeah. He was like, well, it's yours. He gave me the keys and you know, I ran it for a few years until he got home. And then I wanted to go back and start my own company. So it kind of like, you know, kind of fizzled out because I didn't really want to be a part of the politics. And I was still cool with everybody. So, you know, it's more of me helping my friend out, basically, you know. And I did a lot of great things. I mean, I did a couple of records. I did a Dog Pound record, a Snoop record. I did, of course, the Tupac record. did a cool compilation with him, and then it was helping him develop Left Eye and Crooked Eye at the time, and I just wanted to do, me and Sugar still tight, I just wanted to do what I was skilled to do as an executive, because before that I was Eazy-E's liaison. So he knew that my perspective on music would keep him on point. It just happened. It didn't play out like he needed it to play out. He lost a label, and the rest is history. So,
what was your biggest takeaway from your time with the Insane Clown Posse and your experience on Psychopathic?
That, I will tell you, it taught me that independence is not dead. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, they had the energy like how we had at Ruthless Records in the early days,
mm-hmm.
Which was they stuck to what they do best, and that's target their own fans, like how we did gangster rap, and we targeted gangster rap fans. I learned that being in the music business this long, I learned that still does exist when working with. And the touring stuff was off the chain, like how they showed you how to work your merchandise and own your own tour and run your own program. That was incredible. Those couple of years I did was incredible, And Violent J, he's a great businessman, and shout out to because when I got home from prison, I really was trying to find myself, and then I had started putting out some records, and I did a record, and I was on a promo tour at the time, and he asked me to come out on tour with him for a couple of weeks, like a month, and it ended up being like a 2-year relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Wow, that's really cool.
Business. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, Tim, did you have a question?
No, I'm good, brother. I'm wonderful.
How, if at all, has the pandemic affected your creative process?
Well, it really hasn't affected that because I'm an underground guy. Mm-hmm. So for me, all the shit I'm doing is always with hardcore artists, underground artists. I'm not a mainstream person, so creatively it didn't affect anything, but it helped me develop a lot of stuff. I just finished writing the first season of my TV series, The Black Godfather, and I'm shooting that. And I developed my clothing apparel, my whole new monarchy, Mansa Musa, and everything in that process. So it's been great for me creatively because I've been able to get into me. You know what I mean? It's different. I was telling Chad that I said, it's different when you were a mainstream artist and now you can't do Coachella and you can't do this. Well, I was doing underground clubs and working with independent artists all this time. So that's all I've been working with still, just work. So I probably work more during the pandemic, because people have time to sit around and be nothing but creative. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So versus everybody's all over the place and touring and can't do this and that. Now everybody kind of sitting down like, I want to write songs. I want to, you know what I'm saying? So I've been doing a lot of that, So no, it hasn't affected me, not one bit creative. So
what are you working on these days?
Right now I just finished we just finished an album that Architects of G-Funk, me and Cocaine, our collaboration album. We just finished that. We're working on his solo album, another solo album. His next album coming out. It's called 5 on the Black Hand Side. Been working on that. I got my new monarchy that I rap under in Mansa Musa. I'm working on the Royal Blood album right now. So, and that's coming out later, hopefully later on this year. But between 5 on the Black Hand Side and the ALGF record, we're just trying to kind of figure it out. And then I've been working heavy on a lot of film. I've been working on my own. I got my own show coming out, my weekly show that I got coming out. It's like a news show that I have called Rock Boys Weekly. It's linked to my my magazine, Rock Boy Honeys, with all the fly urban models,
Nice.
featured on it. And it's like a talk show. And I'm starting back up to finish filming the first season of The Black Godfather. So yeah, so that's where I've been at creatively. Then I got my merch. I got two clothing apparel companies that I just developed, and I got I got 2 streaming networks that I'm dropping, which is rockwoolhoneys.com and then Musa TV. So yeah, that's what I got going on these days.
What does that stand for, Mansa Musa?
Mansa Musa stands for King Warrior. Mansa is a king. The word warrior is Musa. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it stands for King Warrior. And Mansa Musa is the evolution. It's the evolution of Code 187. It's the king version of Code 187. So it's the King Warrior. See, because when I was coming up, I was a warrior. You know what I mean? And now I'm in a royal position. So now I'm Mansa Warrior. You know what I mean? So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are you officially done with the name Code 187?
No, I'm not. I'm still Code 187 all the time. It's just AKA Mansa Musa. That's all. You know what I'm saying? I just don't say King Warrior. You know what I mean? I don't say Code 187 King Warrior. I could say that, but I just say it's Mansa Musa. You know what I mean? So no, I'm not done with it. I never with Code 187. Code 187 is the anchor. You know, it's everything. You know. I think the cool part about it is now that, you know, I'm in a new way, because Mansa Musa is a way of life. It's not really a movement or anything. It's a way of life. So how I want to be looked at as the man 187 is I want to be looked at as Mansa Musa. So I'm always going to be Code 187. That's me. That's what made Mansa Musa, you know. And, you know, if people don't know where that name actually resonates from, Mansa Musa was the richest man who ever lived. He was a king back in the ancient times, and to this day he's the richest person that ever lived. But that's what his name means. Yeah.
Dope.
Certainly very fitting for the amazing career you've had and continue to have. So
thank you, man.
Yeah,
I'll take it. Yeah. Humbling, man. It's very humbling. I'll take it. You know.
Yep. You've definitely always got a platform with us. Anytime you want to talk to us, promote anything, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know.
Yeah, I'm gonna come on when I'm gonna come back on when the Black Godfather is done. So
okay,
about that and everything, so we can chop it up. And then, you know, I'll try to get me and Coca on, you know, when we drop the ALGF record. It's an incredible record too, you guys. Like,
yeah, we just had him on recently, a couple of weeks ago. We had him on here, and he was, you know, promoting the new song that he came out, the Monkey song that he came out with.
Yeah, that's on 5 on the Black Hand side. We're trying to finish the album right now. We about 3 songs away from finishing 5 on the Black Hand side album. So it's gonna be incredible too. So yeah.
I have one last question for you. Have you ever sampled any of Willy Hutch's music?
Yeah, I did on a mixtape. I did sample something on a mixtape called From Pomona with Love. I sampled a record off of his first album. You know, I respect my family heritage so much. I've never touched it, you know, but I am going to, on the Mansa Musa album, on the Royal Blood album, I am going to probably do a couple of Willy Hutch records. So
okay.
I'm just trying to see which one I want to use, you know what I mean? Because I got so many favorites. I got so many favorites in his catalog, you know. So
something kind of like a duet, like with Nat King Cole did with his daughter, maybe something like that. Bring back the voice and
exactly. Yeah, I want to try to figure out. Yeah, that's what I want to try to figure out. You know what I mean? I want to figure out how I can do it like a collaboration. You know? I wish I could have used "I Choose You," but you know, Kay killed it. But you know,
yeah, that's true. But
it's a lot of great records. It's Sunshine Lady. It's a bunch of records that are incredible that he have in his catalog. Though, you know,
dope stuff. Okay, well, before we end, can we get a drop for westcoaststyles.com, please?
Okay. Ready?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yo, this is Code 187, aka Mansa Musa, and you know where y'all at. You chilling on West Coast Styles, boy. You know how we do it, huh? West to the world, huh?
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for being our guest tonight. It's such an honor and a pleasure. Until next time, be blessed, and we'll see you again.
You too, brother. I love y'all, man. Thanks for having me, man. Anytime,
likewise.
Anything y'all need, man. It's all good, brothers.
You got it,
Sounds
sir.
good. Thanks so much, Hutch.
Be safe,
thank-
y'all.
Yep.
All right.
Peace.
One.